process, we have installed WordPress into a new subdomain at SiteGround. And we went to the domain .com wp-admin install. You can actually also just go to the domain. It'll work just fine. And I put in the username and password and logged in, and here we are. So one thing I note in here that I want us to continue doing is keep everything updated. So when I get to WordPress, I see this big welcome to WordPress thing, which I find just annoying. So I dismiss that. I update to the most current version of WordPress, because if you recall, I have a local copy of WordPress that I downloaded, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and WordPress is certainly updated. So I want to make sure that I'm keeping everything up to date. I go back to the dashboard, I can see that there's an update left and there's a plugin update left. So I'm going to go to the plugin. I'm going to update Akismet. I'm actually going to delete Hello Dolly. And then if I look at my themes, chances are everybody in here is fine. 2019 and 2020 are in good shape. In general, what we do is we load the Beaver Builder theme and the Beaver Builder plugin and Gravity Forms and sometimes WooCommerce or whatever. I'm not going to go through all those things. What I do want to go through, though, is the next step, which is adding an SSL. So as you can see right now, if I go to the test site, I'm just at patty.madcowweb.net, and we do not have an SSL. And I would like to add an SSL to this site. But we're just going to kind of assume that we're going to bring this thing live. So I will go back here to my cPanel, scroll down to Let's Encrypt, because these are free. WP Engine and SiteGround both offer Let's Encrypt. And then chances are you're not going to see the domain in here. It's not going to be already listed. You can see there's 2 pages of domains. Most of these are going to be like primary domains. So you're going to just find it down here in the drop down. So if we go in here and go find Patty, we see right there patty.madcowweb.net. And we're going to just do a plain Let's Encrypt SSL and just hit install. And it's added to the install queue. What I'm going to do is, for this video, I will stop the video and give it some time to propagate, to actually show up. But what you're basically going to do is kind of come back in here in 5 or 10 minutes and look for the patty.madcowweb.net domain and make sure that it's finally been added. So I'm going to pause and I'll come back once it becomes added. Okay, so I hit refresh a couple times and now it's showing up. So now we have the patty.madcowweb.net. That domain, or subdomain if you will, is active, and we don't have to do anything else. We just all we care about is that it's showing up in here. And there's kind of a 2-step process here. So one of the first things I do, because the site is not necessarily live, one process we can do is come into settings and general and just change the HTTP to HTTPS. That's it. And if I hit save changes, it will usually kick me out of the site. So I have to log back in again and confirm the email is fine. But now what you'll notice is these are both S's. I have a padlock up here in the corner, and you'll notice that if I hit refresh here, I'm hoping that it'll go to secure. Maybe I have to do a hard refresh. Maybe go to a comment. So I went to that's WordPress.org. Okay, so it's not working yet. So one thing I'm going to do is just open up my inspector and see if we have any errors. And I'm not seeing any errors. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to open this in an incognito window. And there we go. The padlock is there. So it was just being cached. That's all. So what I'm going to do is on my Mac, I'm going to hit Shift-Command-Delete, and I'm going to clear my cache. I'm only doing cached images. I do not clear my cookies or browsing history. That's just my own personal preference. And once this is done, I have a feeling that if I open up our website, in a non-incognito window, it should be locked. And here we go. Now we have an SSL. So that, in general, it's nice if it's that simple. I'm going to show you the example of what I do on the left-hand side over here, so it can, this guy here, this last item, I just want to show us that in case you don't have the option, but this is the fastest and easiest way to get something moved over to be fully SSL, HTTPS. I'm going to show you the other way to do that, which is through the database. So if we go back into the cPanel, and I scroll down into where this is where we created the database. We're going to go into phpMyAdmin. I will say, just because it's important to note, that this is a very dangerous place to be. If you make a mistake in here, this is the database. This is all the data that gets spit out onto the web page, the website. If something goes askew in here, the site can very easily go down. So that's just a general warning to be careful. So on the left-hand side are all our databases. We know that our database is called Patty. So if I click on Patty, it'll be a very simple list of tables. You can see there's very few tables in here. I'll just show you an example. If we go to Mad Cow Web, which is this guy, if I open up that, there's going to be a bunch more tables. So you see we have all of these. These are the Gravity Forms tables, all kinds of, all the WooCommerce tables. So just know that it won't always look exactly the same. Our Patty one down here is very, very straightforward and simple. If you go to WP options, and we're just going to mess with SSL right now, you can see that the URL, I'll make that a little bit bigger. You can see that the site URL and the home, these first two things, are HTTPS. And so if we hadn't changed this, if we hadn't made this change here, this is the URL, and I think it might be called the URI. I always get confused on what those things are called. But the WordPress address and the site address, if we hadn't changed these, back here in the phpMyAdmin, these would not have S's on them. And so if I double click on that, I can come in here and I can backspace over, I can do whatever I want, but I could then just add the S. And when I add that, it then gets updated in the database. And so if you don't have an SSL certificate, like we added the SSL certificate to the cPanel using the Let's Encrypt, if that wasn't in place and we changed these to S's, it would throw errors in the front of the site. So just know that if you didn't have the ability, it's not early on in the process to change in settings general, these two things, you can go back into the database and update them right here. And again, I'm in my database, in the WP options table, and then if I go to browse versus, because structure will show you a whole different thing. If I go to browse and I'm still in the options table, the first two with the most modern versions of WordPress, the first two are the URL, the site URL and the home URL. So that's how we would change those over there. Okay.